What's going on, everybody? Dogman Dan here. We are in the division. It is update 1.6.1. They're calling it Quality Update 1.6.1. There's a lot of things in here to talk about. So for anyone that does follow me and is interested, hopefully can shed some light on some things that have happened. It was about a 4.5 gigabyte update. At least for PC it was anyway. The biggest thing is a new feature of loadouts. So loadouts are now available for players, and basically it's going to offer you a way to set up your weapons, gear, skills, talents all to one loadout slot and allow for quick swapping of builds between the different activities that you want to do. Okay. Now each player character will have the ability to have up to 6 loadouts per character. So, if you have, let's say you have 2 characters, you can have a total of 12 loadouts, more or less. So one character has 6 loadouts, another character has 6 loadouts, basically. Which is really nice because it's going to really allow you to do what you want with your different sets of gear. I've had multiple sets of defense gear, and I've wanted to do one thing with it, and then one thing with another set that I had, but I couldn't separate those loadouts, but now we can separate those, which is a nice thing. Now you're saying to yourself, there's a lot going on here because you're still going to have some limitations if you think about it, right? I mean, you've got limitations on your backpack as well, but we're going to talk about that. So, you can't have like 10 million things if you're going to have 6 loadouts, you're not going to have enough backpack space, so forth and so on. Well, there's a lot of things that have changed here. Okay. Let's talk about some gameplay changes. So aim assist is no longer activated when players hipfire with a controller. Okay. There's several bug fixes that prevented players from being revived by skills or player interaction if they were previously being revived by a support station, and this revive was canceled. For various reasons it would have been canceled. Okay. Instances of HVT bosses getting stuck, instances of players that would get stuck in combat with NPCs that were outside of the mission after completing it. I think we've all had that happen a few times. The bug on resistance to status effects. It basically would still be counted as a chance to resist the effect altogether, on top of reducing its duration. So the resistance value will now correctly only reduce the duration of the status effect. Okay, which is a pretty big fix. There's also a bug fix where a few fire extinguishers would deal high amount of damage to NPCs in some missions. So for consistency, fire extinguishers in the entire game will no longer deal any damage and only apply to a disorientated effect on NPCs. So no more damage, they're just going to apply disorient, which is not horrible. I mean, it's nice to have the damage, but if they're just doing it at random damage where they couldn't control it, I guess I could see why they made that change. They also fixed a bug in here in the gameplay where grenades thrown by LMB grenaders would sometimes apply stagger and damage before they actually detonated. Again, that's something that anyone that's played the game has dealt with before. So now they've taken care of that. Okay, so next up in terms of things that have been changed, we're going to go through the items. And this is the biggest thing right here. There's a lot going on in items. Number 1, backpack capacity changes. They will no longer be randomly generated for any high-end equipment, exotic, and gear set backpacks. Instead, they will all have the capacity of 110 or 120 if you have all base of operations perks unlocked. This change is immediately retroactive. It's on everything. So once you reach your high-end, your exotics, your gear sets, all of them are basically going to have a capacity of 110 or 120 as long as you've got everything unlocked, which basically almost doubles what the largest backpack, at least I had out there. So that's nice to have that huge amount of backpack space now, especially when we're talking loadouts and you're probably going to have 2 or 3 loadouts going with your sets. Um, okay, the next big one, level 34 extended magazines have now been rolled differently. So previously we had them rolling anywhere between 109 and 111%. They will now roll between 109 and 121% for extra magazine size. This change is not retroactive on what you have. You have to go back and recraft yourself. No biggie. Easy enough for me to do. I will definitely get myself on that for the weapons that I want. Existing old level 33 extended magazines that had a magazine bonus above 108% is now automatically reduced to 108%. So the cap on a level 33 is 108%. Level 34 starts at the 109 up to 121, so anywhere in there. Pretty randomized, but I like the extra basically 10% increase. It makes a huge difference on what I play with, especially when I'm using the PP19. Okay, Nimble will now apply healing over time in 4 ticks over 4 seconds. Much different than what it was. If you have a ninja backpack, hold on to that bad boy. It has been removed from all loot tables until it can be correctly revamped. Right now, that basically means that it does not drop anywhere. Not in NPCs, not from exotic caches anymore, nowhere. So if you have one, it's, yeah. Yeah, I think I've got like 3 of them, honestly with you. I had to check my stash, but yeah. So, good to keep a hold of them until they fix it and we see what they changed there. There was another bug where some items could not be recalibrated to the maximum stat range that was displayed at the recalibration station. There was another bug with the Path of the Nomad set where the 4-piece talent cooldown progress would reset upon death in Last Stand. Okay. And then there was also another bug fix here on Tactician's Authority sets where the 4-piece bonus wouldn't reset correctly when starting a back-to-back Last Stand game session. Now, I personally hadn't experienced either of those because I haven't really done the Last Stand yet. I was kind of holding off to wait and see what kind of changes they did. And we'll talk about those changes here in just a little bit. Talent-wise, okay, so we have a whole bunch of different things that went on than talents now. So, and it's all bug fixes. Shrapnel, the bleed effect would not correctly apply to nearby enemies when using the 4-piece Predator gear set. That's been fixed. Triage, where the cooldown reduction would not display properly in the UI. That's been addressed. The Rapid Talent, where the cooldown reduction would not display correctly in the skills menu, has been addressed. Nimble Talent, where the player could be revived by the talent if they died during cover-to-cover movement. That's been addressed. So technically, you know, people that were using it before probably call it a nerf, if you will, because of these couple of nimble changes they've made. Fear Tactics, where the shock effect would not correctly apply to nearby enemies, has been addressed. Wildfire, the same thing, where the burn effect would not correctly apply to nearby enemies, has been addressed. And the Pecan Talent would only work on NPCs and not on players. That has been fixed as well. So now that does work on players. In terms of weapons, a couple big things here they did. Burst fire weapons now have a maximum RPM, making it impossible to reach non-burst rate of fire with specific control modifications. This does include the burst fire MP5, FAL, and 93R. Also, base flinch. I can't read tonight and talk at the same time. It's been significantly reduced on all weapons, so this change basically affects both PvP and PvE. NPC weapons will cause less flinch as well. Okay, let's get into skills. Here's some big changes. Some of it applies to defense gear, some of it applies, of course, to Secret Mines, and a couple other issues that were going on. So we're going to just go right to it. Secret Mine Airburst was the issue that was going on before. This is how they've addressed it. Fire effects have been reworked into a real status effect that can be cleansed using medkits. So dropping a med kit when that fire effect is there can be cleansed. Okay, stagger effect has been completely removed from this mod. So there is no longer stagger on the Seeker Mines, and you can cleanse yourself of the fire effect by dropping a med kit or having a med kit in the area. And that's a pretty big change in that regards. I don't know if that was kind of what everybody was thinking was going to happen, but that's going to make a big change on a lot of things. Okay, signature skills. There was a bug where players would sometimes not receive the correct bonus. Signature skill cooldown reduction when killing NPCs or other players. So it was either PvP or PvE. You were still getting that bug. Apparently they've addressed that. Throwable skills became unusable after the player received a status effect while aiming them has been addressed. Okay, let's get into a couple of these ballistic shield things. So, there was a bug with the ballistic shield where the player could end up shooting his own shield when reloading and interacting with the shield deployed. I'm glad they fixed that. 4 instances of incorrect animations when using the ballistic shield with the defense gear set and the SMG. There was some instances there. Okay, so they also got the description of mobile cover for the blast shield that did not clearly indicate that it also applied blind effects to hostiles. Okay. There was where players would not be healed by first aid if they were damaged while in the radius of the skill. Pretty big bug there that they've hit. There was a bug also where the slowing effect of bleed would apply multiple times on a character. That was using the ballistic shield, so that's actually a nice fix for ballistic shield users. Okay. The first aid booster shot where applying the skill another time while the buff was still active would not refresh this duration has been addressed. And then here's a pretty big one. The ballistic shield when using the 4-piece defense, where the mod bonuses would still apply despite the fact that the gear set talent says otherwise. Okay, so that was a pretty big bug that was mentioned many times, and people were using specific ballistic shields based off of what the abilities were, if you will, or what was available, the bonuses that were available. That's now been taken away like it should be. How much does that affect things? I think it's going to really depend upon how you were playing and how much you were really reliant on it. I've got a little bit of work to do to finalize my defense setup. I wouldn't say finalize it. I've still got some mods that I really, really want that might take forever to get them, but I think I will definitely be releasing the 1.61 defense update here soon. Maybe by the weekend if I can get to it. Mission-wise, Grand Central, there were some turrets that would remain active after the completion. Times Square, Power Relay, where the boss could run outside of the mission. The Napalm Production Legendary Mode, where the mission could stop working if you stayed idle too long. Hudson Refugee Camp, where doors could remain closed when a turret was used in the proximity. And then also the Napalm Production site again, where players would be unable to complete the mission if they fast traveled during the Escape the Building. I don't think I ever tried to fast travel during Escape the Building. But, I mean, I guess it's a good thing to know that they fixed that. So, we're going to hit on incursions now. Stolen Signal is the big one where they made a lot of changes to it. There was a bug with Curveball would stop throwing grenades during the fight. That's been addressed. Where the Heavy Riker could move too slow and therefore not give you enough time to kill him before the timer runs out. That was easy enough to have happen. Where the Heavy Riker also could remain stuck in the spawn location in the boss room. I had that happen. And then where checkers would not show in specific conditions. I don't know what the specific conditions are. They never really mentioned those. And then they fixed the bug with several incursions where the final enemy wave would not spawn in specific situations. Again, they didn't say what they were. I'm assuming people probably found ways to cheat it, if you will, or and it was brought up, and they figured out how to fix those open-ended issues. We'll call it that. Underground. They made some changes here in the Underground. The ammo crate has been moved in a new location at the beginning of Underground. Okay. There was a bug in the Secure the Intel missions where the last objective of Recover the Report could not be located outside. It could have been located outside of the map, making it impossible. So that's been addressed. They fixed the bug in where players could get stuck in an unplayable dungeon if they disconnected in the last room. And then finally in here they fixed the bug where players would face the elevator instead of the stairs when returning to the terminal from the operations center. I don't know how much of a big issue that was. I mean, I guess unless somebody went the wrong way and kept trying to go back into the mission and it was a pain, but they fixed it. Survival. So there was a bug that would allow players to group in a solo survival session. Several locations in the survival where players could end up getting stuck. Several instances where the hunter would not spawn for players standing at a specific location when somebody else had actually triggered it for an extraction. A bug in there where a group of 2 would be disbanded if one member would have been disconnected and reconnected. Okay, and then another... They just said fixed another weird door, so there was a weird door in there. Now, they actually fixed a whole lot of... They addressed a whole lot of stuff on Last Stand. I'm not going to get into that really too much here. I'm going to have the notes posted over on the nogcommunity.com forums. Maybe I'll try to hit this up in a separate video to talk about it when I get into The Last Stand, because there's a lot of changes they made there. Now, if you've played The Last Stand, I'd be curious what you think on these changes, but I'll probably bring those up in a separate video just to kind of talk about it. They fixed a lot of things inside the world and, like, some instances of several bugs and stuff. A big one here is going to be the DZ. So there's been some big changes in the DZ. Okay. They've now added rewards for clearing a landmark in the DZ. So players will now receive experience as well as 1 non-contaminated item directly to your inventory for finishing a landmark. Now, I play landmarks all the time. That's what I go in there and grind out landmarks all the time. So I will probably get a lot of non-contaminated items. We'll see what you get out of it. They don't specifically say what it is. There's been significant level design changes and improvements were made on several locations of the Dark Zone to limit unfair encounters. Okay? And I would assume that would be PvP issues that were coming up. An issue where some landmarks would not show as cleared when you finished. Several instances of landmarks not spawning second wave of enemies after the first wave was cleared. There was actually a bug clearing the landmark or Dark Zone supply drops in a bracket below level 30 that would show 0 Phoenix credits awarded. Well, the reward screen no longer lists Phoenix credits as a reward for anyone below level 30. That's how they fixed that, because you don't get any if you're below level 30. There was a bug with the named NPC was missing at the Arc Plaza landmark over in DZ04. Okay, the DZ North mission could break if multiple group members would interact at the same time at the desk over in DZ9. The safe house there. Okay, fixed a bug where players would be unable to fast travel around inside the DZ, even if you've unlocked those. And there was another bug here in DZ09 at the greenhouse, where enemies would not spawn if players were standing too close to the spawn locations. I actually had that happen one time, and I was like, what's going on? And then I moved, and then they actually would have spawned. But, yeah. Now, there's a whole bunch of other stuff here in terms of UI changes, some PC specifics, and a couple other little things here where, let's say, players could get disconnected from the game after buying premium credits. Over on Xbox One, where the game could actually crash when finishing a stream installation, or several instances of appearance items causing graphic glitches and clipping. But like I said, there's a couple of PC-specific things, some UI changes as well. I'm going to have all that stuff laid out over in the Division area on the Nog community forums, and I may address some of those down the road, but I think the biggest one will be taking a look at The Last Stand, seeing what the changes are, and trying to hit that up in a specific mission, or, I mean, a specific extra video about it. Anyway, hopefully this kind of helped you out in understanding what's going on in 1.6.1. I'm definitely looking forward to spending lots of time over there crafting new extended magazines, and definitely looking forward to actually building some loadout setups for my characters, because I actually have 2 characters now. Yep, I started a second one, which I have yet to decide what I want to run as the main gear set on that, but I have started the second one. Alright, hopefully you enjoyed this, and thanks for tuning in, watching my gameplay, listening to what was going on, and I'll catch you guys soon.